Hey there, Teisha here, and welcome to the Hurdle2Hope Show, live here from Daisy Hill. It's very windy. I've just quickly come outside because it's been very wet here for a couple of days, which is amazing. Lots of the farmers around need this rain. It is beautiful and green everywhere here. It had been, very dry over summer and also autumn. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see it's a bit stormy clouds up there, but a bit of blue sky. But more importantly, look at this beautiful green grass. We've actually got a couple of plovers there at the moment who have got their chicks there on the beautiful green grass. So I love, they were here this time last year, so we're keeping our eye out, and they came back this year. Okay, but enough of Daisy Hill. Today's episode really continues the theme of holistic healing. So if you listened last week, thank you. I hope you enjoyed my chat with Tara Lee. Both Tara and I are dealing with cancer at the moment, and Tara had an incredible insight she's bringing to that journey as a psychic medium and with a really different approach. And I loved, again, learning from someone else as to what their perspective in this healing space is. We continue that conversation this week with Pauline Romao. Pauline is incredible. She's the founder of the Bodhi Holistic Hub. She'll explain all about that. But our conversation is just about that, holistic healing, and how to have an open mind to explore different healing modalities. So enjoy this episode. As I always say, have an open mind, because having an open mind is what helps you to move forward from hurdle to hope. Enjoy the episode, and I'll chat soon. Welcome to the Hurdle2Hope Show. I'm your host, Teisha Rose, and this podcast, it's about acknowledging that unexpected hurdles interrupt all of our lives, but it's how you respond that will define your experience. Each week, we'll be having real conversations with people whose lives have been interrupted and those who offer us support through our most challenging times. Each reminds us that even in the darkest moments, hope is always there. So, hey, Pauline, thank you so much for joining us here on the Hurdle2Hope Show.
Thank you, Teisha. Happy to be here.
And so for others to know, to put in context, Pauline and I met at the Digital Health Festival, so something that we both went to in Melbourne. I remember the night before I met Pauline, I quickly thought, okay, I need to meet someone who's more in the holistic space, because there was a lot of medical and a lot of tech people. And then we met the next day and I thought, well, thank you. So yeah, it's good to meet you again and to have a chat, because I loved what you're doing in that space. And I thought, what better way of finding out more than getting you onto the show?
Yeah, amazing. Thank you.
So before we dive into the whole holistic healing as a way of life, because that's what we really want to focus on today, I'd love for the listeners to hear a little bit more about you. Where are you chatting to us from? And a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm speaking to you from Perth in WA. I'm, as we haven't mentioned yet, but I'm the founder of Bodhi Holistic Hub, which is a platform I created to help people find trusted holistic practitioners. But my personal journey has been a little bit unconventional. So I actually spent over a decade working for tech companies like Airbnb, and then before that, Agoda. But I always had a passion for holistic practices. I studied hygienism and iridology, and I've spent a lot of time just trying out a lot of different modalities for myself, but also just learning about holistic and preventative practices in general. And I guess I was lucky to have that tech background, because I was then able to, understand the power that technology can have to facilitate trust and facilitate connection. And that's what we are bringing to the holistic space with Bodhi Holistic Hub is using technology, using specific standards and processes to instill that level of trust to space and industry that is still quite unregulated and with lacking that in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, you're right. And why I enjoyed connecting with you at the festival was that, as the listeners will know, I've always been holistic in my approach to my health, to my diagnoses with MS and cancer. But that regulation is so important because, just like you do with medical, you need to be able to trust those who are looking after you. So I love what you're doing in that space. It's just really important. So I guess in terms of, you talk about tech background, but in terms of holistic therapies, they've been a big part of your life. How have they impacted your own journey?
Yes, it's quite deeply personal for me, and I think it's often the case as well when I meet practitioners, they'll often add a personal experience with holistic practices. So personally, for many years, I struggled with chronic digestive issues, and I also had quite severe acne. And I went the traditional route, so I saw different doctors and dermatologists and used external creams and different type of medication, and it was helping, but it wasn't actually fixing the problem. And so really everything changed for me when I started seeing a naturopath, and she helped me understand that my skin issues were actually a reflection of what was happening internally. And we discovered together that I was actually allergic to lactose and, intolerant to lactose. And that was a major trigger to both my skin issues, but also my digestive issues. And we worked with her and through the right combination of herbs to help with that and, help balance my hormones as well. And we looked at healing my microbiome and what needed to do to bring back the right balance. I finally was able to see real improvement and was able to heal that for the long term. So that was a real, I guess, aha moment, I'd say,
Yeah.
because I realized that conventional medicine was useful and was helping me in treating my symptoms, but only when I started to use holistic approach with it, I was able to really address what was going on behind
Mhm.
the symptoms, and it really shifted how I was thinking about health at the time.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's a lot what happens as well, that we do just address and react to symptoms as opposed to actually thinking, well, something on the outside's got something to do with what's going on in the inside.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's a real shift of thinking, which I think is important and what we're sort of chatting about today in terms of it being a part of life,
Mhm.
which is not as reactive, but more proactive. You mentioned you went on to study and find out more. So obviously that piqued your interest.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm someone who loves to learn and understand. And so during the first COVID lockdown, I finally had the time to dive deeper into those topics. And hygienism is really interesting. I don't know if you've heard about that practice before.
No.
It comes from a French physician called Antoine Béchamp, and it's fundamentally different from Louis Pasteur's germ theory that dominates modern medicine as we know it. And so I thought that was really
Mhm.
interesting. And while Pasteur focuses on killing germs, Béchamp believed that the terrain, which is our internal environment, determines whether a disease can take hold. And so hygienism is built on this principle in the fact that the body is always trying to get back into balance. And that's what
Mhm.
we call homeostasis. And when we experience symptoms, it's actually often, not always, but often the body's intelligent attempt to heal itself and restore the balance. So, for example, you might have heard about that, but a fever isn't something that need to be immediately suppressed. It's the body raising its temperature to create a kind of inhospitable environment for the pathogens.
Mhm.
Or, if you think about an inflammation around an injury, it can help bring healing nutrition to the area. And so often things like if you think about the acne that I was struggling with, it was actually my body trying to eliminate the toxins through the skin, which is like one of the elimination pathway that we have. And so
Yeah.
I think what I found really interesting is that it teaches us to work with our body kind of natural healing processes rather than against them, and using proper nutrition, rest, stress management, and a lot of other things to support the body's natural kind of detoxification system. And so yes, that was just something that I thought was really interesting. And then iridology complement this quite beautifully. It was developed a long time ago, I think back in the 1800s, by Hungarian physician, and he started the story of how he discovered it is quite interesting. He noticed like changes in a owl iris after breaking its leg, and then he started to kind of studied it. And the iris is essentially a map of the body, and different areas in your iris is going to correspond to different organs and system. And so through iridology, you're able to see constitutional weaknesses, inflammatory processes, and even inherited predisposition. And so you're able to see, like, for example, a small gap in a specific area, which corresponds to the stomach, might indicate a genetic predisposition to digestive issues, or a dark spot can show some toxicity in an organ. And I think what's really powerful about iridology is that it often can help identify potential issues before they actually manifest as a symptom. So it's really a preventative approach to healing, which really interested me. So sorry, I went into a lot
No, 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 that's
explanation of
great. I'm
that,
just
but
listening
yeah,
to it because I hadn't realized. And it's what I was thinking about as well. It's amazing, isn't it, that like when I went for acupuncture all the time, they always looked at my tongue because that indicated things. And then
absolutely.
when I had reflexology, I was like finding out how that, different organs and all different parts of your feet. Like it's
Mm,
amazing. Our bodies are incredible and we just don't know enough about it to heal.
exactly, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and as bad as the whole COVID lockdown was, it also had some benefits that you did have time to actually sit and hold space for yourself and learn.
For sure, and I think that has been the case for so many other people. I've heard so many people starting to learn about topics that they had been wanting to learn about for so long, and as you
Yeah.
said, finally found the time, and so it's there's always a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, what are your observations then in terms of how people look after themselves today compared to how people looked after themselves years ago?
I think that what's happened is that we've outsourced our health. Um, if you think about previous generation, they often had more knowledge, more connection to, natural rhythm, and we often hear about like grandma's remedies, but we don't know anymore what they are. And I think that now we live in a world of quick fixes, and again, kind of symptom suppression, and we've lost the understanding that, as you said, that our bodies are interconnected system that need to be fixed together. They're not isolated parts to be fixed kind of separately. And I think what's interesting is that the irony that we have more health information available than ever, but less actual health wisdom. And people are reaching for supplement without understanding the root cause, which actually can do more harm than good sometimes, or relying, we have all of those tracker now, technical tracker to see what's going on for us, which is great. But if it goes against then our own internal awareness, then it can actually be quite negative as well. So I think it's again is being able to combine both, like the progress and the science information, but not lose that internal knowledge and that connection to our body, to how we feel, and being able to understand what's happening for us without having to ask something external to tell us what to do.
Yeah, that's so true. And I hadn't even thought about it as, home remedies that we had and were passed down and all. And I think that awareness, I've had digestive problems. Mum has had quite severe digestive problems. And what's good is well, it's not good for her, but we're both very similar. So I always find out, oh, if I eat this, what does it do to you? And then I eliminate it. Or, I've been able to learn through her
Mhm.
because our systems are so similar. So I'll ring up at the supermarket. Now, is that high FODMAP? Am I meant to have that? And it makes such a difference. So I think that's right. We don't have those conversations or really are aware of what
Mm.
foods do trigger things.
Yeah.
And then I was really interested when I was doing some research, Pauline. I also saw that you spent some time with Indigenous communities. So tell us about that and how did that come to be and what did you sort of discover with those interactions?
Yeah, so I spent a little bit over a month with a tribe in Brazil called the Uniqueen and
Mm.
went there to do some charity work where I was working on deforestation. But we were in this very remote area and just, spent the entire time with them. And I guess it really transformed as well my understanding of medicine. It was really interesting to witness. They have shamans over there, but shamans are their doctors, and they approach healing very differently from, I guess, Western medicine in a way. They really see the person as a whole, not just the physical body, but also the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual bodies as well. And they work in collaboration with nature. They have like such a impressive, intimate knowledge of plants that goes really far beyond just their chemical compounds. Like if you want, they understand the energetics and spiritual properties of plants. And what struck me as one the most is their relationship with healing. It's not something that you do to someone. It's really a collaboration between the practitioner, so the shaman for them, the patient, nature and spirit, and they all have to support each other in that process. And I thought that was beautiful to watch, and they really understand that healing often requires addressing also traumas or limiting belief or spiritual imbalances, not just the physical symptoms and challenges. And it's interesting as well. I was reading recently that indigenous communities often have lower rates of chronic disease compared to Western societies. So they must be doing something well
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what I hope this conversation does is we need to learn from others.
Hmm.
And it just makes sense to me after having a life very dominated by different illnesses. It's like we don't know everything. And that doesn't mean to be scared of it. And I know I was worse with my health when I only reacted to symptoms. So if
Hmm.
we can be more holistic, if we can see our bodies as mind, body, spirit,
Hmm.
and combine all of that, it just to me makes sense. And do you find lots of people just are scared of thinking of it like that, or?
Yeah, I feel like because a lot of those ways to think about healing aren't backed by science yet. I think will come to that point. I'm convinced of that. But there is that fear that it's all kind of not true or a bit woo-woo. And sometimes if you don't understand, you prefer it's a little bit scary and that's the unknown. And so you prefer to stay away from that. And I think there's also a lot of stigma around it,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And there is a lot of work to do. And I think that's what we're trying to do with, at Bodhi as well, is not only to facilitate access to the practitioners, but also to facilitate access to the information. Because information and knowledge is power when you start to understand how a certain modality works, how they come about discovering it, what's the science behind it, what is it that you can expect when you have a session, and what are the mechanism behind it. It
Yeah.
really helps build that trust again, build that understanding. And so it comes from this thing that you've heard about, but yeah, you're not really sure because it sounds a little bit weird, to something that you're like, oh, actually, that's interesting. And I think the other aspect is sharing stories. You
Mm.
know, there have been so many people that have benefited from different type of holistic modalities. And I think the more stories like those we can share, the better, because then it becomes not just something that you say, hey, like this is great, you should try it. It's like, look at all of those different people that have maybe something similar to what you're experiencing, and here is how it has helped them. And I think it tells a story that is much, stronger than any sometimes data can do to tell the same story.
Yeah, absolutely. And where I think people, if you're really skeptical about things, then you're going to see a natural therapist and you're trying to catch them out. Like you're not
Mhm.
necessarily doing that with the doctor, but then you go because you can't understand it. And I remember when I first started having energy healing, I knew it worked. I knew it was helping me. I
Mhm.
couldn't work out what was going on. And my partner, who's a tradesman, and he was like, who cares if you can't understand it? Like, if it works, it works. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I can't tell people. And he's like, who cares what they think? And I thought that's so true. I think there has been that stigma.
Yeah. And I think, it's funny in the same way, like, yes, there are, holistic practitioners that aren't legitimate and aren't doing a good job, it is true. But sometimes, you know, if you go see a doctor who isn't going to be a good doctor, you're not going to say that all doctors are bad or that medicine in general is bad. But that's what happens with holistic practices. You hear about one person, energy healer, that wasn't doing the right thing, and then the entire modality of energy healing is being seen as bad. And that's funny how it's a double standard from that perspective as well.
Yeah, very true. And you do. And there's, and even having the name woo woo.
Hmm.
To say, and like, oh, you're into woo woo. And I didn't know what that was until I did a course if it was people in America and they're saying woo woo. And I'm like, oh, I guess I'm into woo woo. But it just makes it, I think it trivializes
Yeah.
what, you believe in.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, again, going back, it's a lack of understanding. Often I say, when people are skeptical, I say, have you actually tried to understand and learn about it and really like try to gain knowledge about this topic? Because if you're just saying that you think it's, nothing, but you haven't actually tried to understand, then go and study a bit more, and then we can have a conversation. And I'm really, really open to discussing with a lot of different people that have different opinions as well. I think it's really valid as long as they've made that effort to try to understand the other side, like and respect it, like the same way that conventional medicine is amazing, really useful in many, many ways. And it's not about dismissing it and saying that holistic practices are going to be the solution for everything. They work together, and I think
Yeah.
having that approach is a lot more helpful for everyone.
Yeah, and I think that's really good to highlight because there will be lots of people listening to this who are dealing with chronic health conditions, for example. And we're not saying you either do this or you go medical. So I like that we're on the same page there, that you can, why not benefit from both worlds, is what I say.
Absolutely. And frankly, I think that that black and white thinking is what's holding back real progress in this space, because the most effective approach, and especially I think for chronic illnesses, needs to combine both. And it's interesting, like in Australia, when we look at research, we can see that now, like two-thirds, I think, of Australians have used at least one complementary therapy, right? So it is already happening, and I think that the more GPs and the conventional doctor can accept that and work hand in hand with the holistic practitioner, the better the outcome for the patient. Because often you might hide to your GP that maybe you're seeing a naturopath or an acupuncturist because you're like, oh, what are they going to think of me? When in reality, those two practitioners should be able to speak to each other to get you better outcome for you.
Yeah, 100%. If you're going into a surgery, if you've meditated beforehand, I'm sure that surgery is going to do a lot better and it will help the surgeon as well.
Sure.
So you're right, it's got to be the same because part of how hard it is hard to heal sometimes in a hospital because it is so sterile and stark. But if you then got your own music in there or whatever it is, you can combine those two worlds.
And I often tell people, like, if you're in a car accident, you want you're not going to go see a naturopath. You want your emergency medicine. But
Yes.
if you've got, a chronic issue, an autoimmune condition, hormonal imbalances, like, you know, like those type of kind of more lifestyle diseases, you need to look deeper. And conventional medicine really excels at crisis intervention, but I think holistic approaches are really good at addressing the underlying imbalances that can lead to a chronic disease as well. And I think the key is, yeah, as we talked about, finding practitioner we can work collaboratively and know when to refer to other modalities as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And not being scared. And I always think if one is saying don't do medical and one is saying don't do, I don't like alternate, but natural therapies or holistic therapies, then neither of those are right for me and my journey. Whereas if they're open, then that's great. Let them be open. My neurologist would say to me, "Are you meditating?"
Mhm.
And I was like, "How's that?" Like that set me in my 20s. That put me on a path which enabled healing. So you're right. We need to have these conversations and hope that as more and more people go through medical school and all that they're open as well.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, and I think that often people that might go just, you know, I just want the holistic path is perhaps they've had a really bad experience as well in the conventional space, which is a shame because it turned them away from something that is also really helpful. So again, I think
Yeah.
you're right, and I think you're a great example of that, of someone who's managed and used both in a way that makes the most sense.
Yeah, we've just got to benefit from everything we can. If you're not well, it's like,
Mhm.
oh, I just need the best of every world possible to keep being well. And I like how you're talking about a way of life. So going back to what, grandparents do and what other cultures do as well. So that's a big thing for you in terms of if someone is living with a chronic illness, it's
Mhm.
that change of mindset to take that everyday approach. Was that
Mhm.
accurate to say?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, and it's going back to understanding that everything's connected. So, you know, you've got physical symptom, but how you feel emotionally, how you eat, how you feel as well in terms of meaning and purpose in your life, for example, is going to have an impact on how you feel. And it's when you think about holistic practices, doesn't mean you have to go really extreme. It's just integrating different rituals or different practices into your life. Meditation is a really great example. We know how, you know, the impact, there is actually quite a lot of science around it now, which is amazing, around how it helps, relaxes your nervous system. Breath work is another modality that has proven to be really beneficial when someone is, you know, very stressed state. There are certain very simple breathing technique that anyone can learn that are really, really basic and simple to follow that can really help to, you know, feel better. And then, as you said, if you go into a surgery or if you go into a certain treatment, with your entire being in a state of calm, in a state of balance, you're going to be able to receive that treatment better. The side effects as well are more likely to be, you know, small as well. I was reading not that long ago a study and would love to, I need to read more about it around fasting and fasting actually before going into chemotherapies, for example. And they were looking at, yeah, side effect of chemotherapies, which we know is can be quite intense. And they realized that by fasting, I think they were doing 3 days of fasting before doing the treatment, really reduced the side effects. So there's more, you know, studies that need to happen, but I think that's an example of how you can combine both. And there's something for everyone, and that's where it's beautiful as well. Like, you know, on the platform we created actually a practitioner matching quiz to help people navigate this space because it can be a little bit overwhelming sometimes. Like when you start opening up to all those modalities, you're like, wow, like, okay, I've heard about naturopathy and this and that, but what is going to be the right approach for me? And so we created that quiz to help direct people to the right practitioner for them. And often one specific challenge can be looked at from different perspectives. Like if you think about back pain, yes, getting a massage, going to see a remedial massage therapist or a chiropractor can be really helpful, but traditional Chinese medicine also can help. Or, if you want to look at the emotional aspect of back pain, sometimes people say that it's when you're holding on to too much, you're carrying on too much on your back. And so it starts to show as back pain. And so you can work with a kinesiologist on that aspect, for example. So it's really interesting. And, whatever is going to resonate with each person is what's really important. And the beautiful thing about holistic approaches as well is that they often improve multiple areas simultaneously. And so when you balance someone's gut health, you might see improvement in their skin, energy, mood, sleep, because again, everything's connected. So yeah.
Yeah, and I love that. And that gives people hope as well, because you're getting involved in feeling better, and it does have that impact. And I think what happens, which I don't love about in terms of medicine, is you see so many different specialists. So I've got, you've got a neurologist, you've got an oncologist, you've got a surgeon, you've got a GP, and they're all looking at different things. Whereas if you can also have natural therapies or holistic therapies that enable you to look at your body as a whole, it
Mhm.
just makes sense that everything will impact.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's what I love. So your business, as you mentioned, it's called Bodhi. Is it, am I saying it right?
Yeah, body, like the body
Bodhi.
tree
Oh,
in
okay. Yeah, yeah. And I read that too. And that platform, it is incredible. And we'll put the links in because as a person looking for different modalities, I can log in and join up and have a look there. But also for practitioners,
Mhm.
they can also be part of that whole world. Is that right? Like, share with us how we can find out more because I absolutely love it. I loved it when I met you at the festival, and I think it's so needed. And I didn't realize that you provide so much information in the quiz and everything as well because that brings it to another level, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we created a platform to initially help people navigate this space. So, as I mentioned, unless you know someone who knows someone, it can be a little bit overwhelming when you get started. And so, and again, going back to the fact there is a lack of regulation, there is a lack of trust. So we wanted to create not just a directory of practitioner, but a platform that would be vetting all of the practitioners. So that's something that is really important. So we go through quite an extensive vetting process with all of our practitioners. And we look at not only do they have the right certification and expertise, but also do they have the right approach to what they do. And so all of the practitioners that we have on the platform are practitioners that we would recommend to our friends and family members. And so if you're someone who's interested, you can search on the platform depending on what you're looking for. You can look for a certain type of practitioner, but also if you're not sure and you don't know where to start, but you're coming with a concern, we have a quiz that just facilitate that process. You can also just search based on a specific concern, and then you'll be recommended with different practitioners. But then the second really big aspect of the platform is around education. So we work closely with our practitioners to create information. We have a modality guide on all of the different practices that are available. We also, as I said, work with practitioners to create articles, to create videos, to create different type of content to just help raise awareness, to help people feel more confident about then taking that next step. And then for the practitioners, one big thing is often they feel a little bit lonely and isolated. And so we also created a community for holistic practitioners to support each other, collaborate, refer as well, have that network of other trusted practitioners that they can refer to. And so our goal is really to, help people that are interested in finding and using holistic practices, but also practitioners that are amazing at what they do and helping them with the rest so that they can focus on what they do best.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's so important, and it is important to yeah, get people more knowledge will mean that people aren't as fearful of stepping out of how they've approached wellness previously and to be a lot more proactive and not scared. if you're too scared or worried about it, you almost mitigate the impact that an actual practitioner can have in working with you. So if you are a lot calmer and you know that this is someone who you trust and who will hold space for you, then that's when healing will happen.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I've loved this chat. I'm so pleased we met in Melbourne a couple of months ago, because it's such an important conversation. And I really hope for people listening to this that they are willing and open to learning a whole heap more, and their well-being will be improved if they just take this as a way of life and to really, approach life differently and be a lot more proactive about their healing.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
thank you, Pauline. It's been lovely chatting.
Amazing. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, so welcome back. I've flicked around, so we've got the green field and the track behind me. I'm staying on the track because it's very wet underneath. I don't want to get my walker bogged. But I hope you enjoyed that chat with Pauline. Please visit Pauline's website, bodhiholistichub.com. All the details will be in the show notes, also on social. So if you're not already, please follow us at Hurdle2Hope on Instagram, also on Facebook. And I'm also starting to share under Teisha Rose in my personal account some of the stuff I'm up to at Daisy Hill. So feel free to follow that journey as well. But I guess what I'm doing with all these episodes is really encouraging you to open your mind. So if you're closed to different types of healing, being open to conversations like I had with Pauline is so important. This is what I wish someone had done for me way back, 25 years ago when I was dealing with really aggressive MS relapses. Fortunately, I did find my way here. So my healing has definitely been helped, of course, by my medical team, but also in relation to all the different holistic modalities that I have been really blessed to connect with along the way. So that's all from me. Enjoy your week. I think I've been so busy. I've been down to Melbourne for the last couple of days, and then next week I think I'm heading back down to Geelong. So getting away a little bit from Daisy Hill, which I don't love, but really networking and meeting some incredible people and really moving forward with my whole Hurdle to Hope business. Thank you for joining me on the Hurdle to Hope show. Please help me spread the word. Share this episode or others to friends, family members who you think will benefit from these conversations. Don't forget, we're also on YouTube now at Hurdle2Hope is the channel. And if you need support, resources, or a speaker for an event, please visit Hurdle2Hope.com. Don't forget Hurdle2Hope with the number 2. Enjoy your week, and if you're going through a difficult time, please remember, even in the darkest moments, hope is always there.